Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Kent's Counterpoint. This is my blog. I'm the author, Kent Anderson, and I'm the writer of the book Climate Anti-Climax, unfortunately only in Norwegian, which actually goes through the green shift, the energy transition that all the Western countries are going through now. The whole world is supposed to go through. We're going to get rid of all the oil and we're going to replace it with power and electricity stored in hydrogen. So today we're going to talk about hydrogen and the transition to a hydrogen energy system. Because everyone says that is possible and that will happen and like it's a given fact. But is it? Well, as everyone knows now, the green shift, the great green shift in our societies, involves a transition to a more sustainable and climate-friendly society with a green economy of everything, and more green jobs and lower greenhouse gases emission. That is, of course, carbon dioxide or CO2, the things that's in your beer and plants live off. To do that, we have to cut out all the oil, all the gas, and all the coal we use for making power and get all the power from the sun and the wind, which are renewables. This is an enormous task, which only actually Western countries can afford so far. So we're doing the best we can, and Germany has been very devoted to this for like at least 20 years. And especially the last 15 and 10 years, they have built enormous amounts of windmills or wind turbines. Now, the question is, where are we going to store all the power? Because the wind turbines doesn't blow all the time and the sun doesn't shine. Well, we're going to store them in batteries and in hydrogen. In hydrogen. That's the solution, and you don't really hear a lot of people say, well, how about the problems? What's the problem with hydrogen? Everyone says this is a great solution, and well, there are some problems, but we can overcome them. So this is the energy revolution for a greener future of saving the climate. Actually, I wanted to have a balloon with hydrogen just, floating over the desk here, but I couldn't because it's super dangerous, actually. It's very, very explosive, and it's hard to get. So it's represented by this mug of water, which is dihydroxide water, H2O. There's a lot of hydrogen in there and a lot of oxygen. And of course, together they make a perfect rocket fuel, which you can turn out fires with, which is a very, very weird thing, but it's true. So the thing is, you can make a lot of hydrogen from water. The plan is, when we have enough wind turbines and have an enormous amount of energy, electric energy, we're going to split the atoms of this water and make hydrogen that can drive cars, that can drive homes, that can heat our homes, that can drive the whole society at night and when the wind doesn't blow. And yeah, that's going to turn out fine. The emissions and dependence of the energy market of fossil fuels, and most countries in the world are focusing on this development of renewable energy. And they are closing down their real power stations already. So how does that go? Well, so far everyone is talking a lot about hydrogen and hydrogen cars, and Toyota is actually selling hydrogen cars. The problem is to fill them up, because even here in Norway, where I'm situated, which is maybe the most devoted country to the green shift, you can't really get hydrogen that easily, even though they have planned to make it they have hydrogen highways and a lot of plans since 2005, 2007, but so far, just a few filling stations. So it is considered the most suitable choice for the future energy market. Both energy, storage media, energy vector and fuel transportation industry and other applications. Every application is going to use hydrogen. And in the last 20 years, there's been increasing efforts to have been dedicated to green hydrogen and technologies development. Okay, billions of euros are being spent to solve Europe's old energy problem. You see, Europe actually never had enough energy. They have coal, but they don't have a lot of natural gas and oil, and Europe's countries doesn't really have a lot of uranium, so they have to import it all. And that made always Europe being in an energy squeeze and dependent on other countries to import energy. And they want to solve it, because if they build enough windmills, they can make enough hydrogen and enough power, and everything will be hunky-dory, they say. But is it true? Well, let's take a little look at all the problems. Enormous projects are being built, okay? The politicians in the EU are actually planning to build an enormous pipeline of hydrogen. It's called the H2Med project, H2Med. This is a pipeline going from Portugal and Spain, conveying 2 million metric tons of hydrogen to France annually. And this is actually, Germany wanted to get into this, so they are jumping onto this enormous project, and it's going to be operational from 2030. So they better hurry up, won't they? Because so far, that's not a lot. And no one is actually asking H2Med project 2 million metric tons of hydrogen, which is the lightest gas there is. So that's a lot of hydrogen. Where is the energy coming from? Because what people tend to forget is that hydrogen is not an energy source, unfortunately. It's in the sun. There it is. Driven by hydrogen that is fusing together to make helium. But you can't do that down here on Earth yet. So where is the energy actually coming from to make all these 2 million metric tons of hydrogen that is going to France and Germany and being operational from 2030? Because right now, Germany and the whole of EU is actually in an energy squeeze. They don't have a surplus of energy, they have too little. So where's the energy going to come from? Well, I searched around this and I couldn't find any answer to it. Nobody actually had a good answer to that. Well, everyone says, well, solar power and wind turbines. Yes, have they built them? No, not yet. Well, they better hurry up then, because if you're going to be operational for 2030, this pipeline, you really are in a hurry. So there is something strange about the whole project, although everyone says it's going to happen, and they use billions of euros to make this. Now, you actually need between 50 and 55 kilowatts of power to make 1 kilo of hydrogen. Now, again, hydrogen is very, very light, so making a kilo of hydrogen is actually a lot of energy, but still you have to make 20 to 25 kilowatts of power, and that's a lot of power. So where's that energy going to come from? Well, what can you actually use it for? You can use hydrogen. If you have the hydrogen, you can use it for a lot of things. You can convert it back to electric energy. You can actually use it as a battery, literally, by an electrochemical process in fuel cells. You can use it as a fuel, internal combustion engines and turbines. It can be burned in ovens to generate heat, which sounds very dangerous. It can be used to a feedstock in many industrial applications that use hydrogen obtained by processing fossil fuels and everything. So you can actually take away natural gas and use hydrogen instead, which is not as easy as it sounds. And it can be applied in other industrial and civil applications to replace natural gas. That is actually the point, because, yeah, it's a transition. and everything's going to be fine, and there's going to be no pollution from CO2, they say. So the interest in hydrogen as an environmentally friendly and economically competitive solution for energy storing has been growing dramatically, but the problem is that everyone says that it's environmentally friendly, and everyone says that it's economically competitive to hydrocarbons from fossil fuels. But to find those calculations is rather hard, and when you find them, there is something very weird about them, because they are super duper optimistic all the time. They're sort of, yeah. So what actually have been done so far? Well, hydrogen is, strangely enough, in the green shift, hydrogen is not just hydrogen. There are many colors of hydrogen. Colors of hydrogen? Yeah, colors. A lot of colors. They are color-coded according to how much pollution of CO2, if you think CO2 is a pollutant. And so they are color-coded according to how much CO2 the production of the hydrogen make. And we're going to go through that path, we start with black and brown hydrogen. Now, that is made from gasification of coal and releasing pollution CO2, all right? You gasify coal and gas, and you get hydrogen out of it. Gray hydrogen is steam reforming of natural gas. Most common, and this is the most common way to make hydrogen today, which is actually also used in welding, of all things. That sounds super duper dangerous, but it's not. Well, they do. And they use it as a cover gas. And this is the most common way to do it. And this is a catalytic reaction of a hydrocarbon with water and vapor, and 850 degrees. It's pretty complicated. And then he uses a lot of energy to make this hydrogen out of. But that's the normal way to do it so far. Then you have turquoise hydrogen. Now, this is methane pyrolysis from natural gas. And, you use a lot of heat and you break down the gas to make hydrogen and solid carbon. What you said is solid carbon. Instead of releasing CO2, you sit with solid carbon. That is coal. And you can dig that down on the ground and no CO2 is released. And then of course you have blue hydrogen, which is steam reforming from natural gas with carbon capture and storage. So, and that's a very expensive process too, and it's not very effective so far, but they're trying to, do it in large scale. And then of course there's pink hydrogen, which is electrolysis from nuclear energy. And recently, actually, the EU came to the conclusion that, well, all right, nuclear energy is green because it doesn't release CO2. Now, here's a paradox for you. The EU has actually then classified CO2 that all plants live off. Okay, it's without CO2, there's no plants, no green nature, no nothing. So CO2 is actually a worse pollutant than nuclear waste. Now, how about that? How about that? CO2, which you breathe out, actually, which in your beer too, is more dangerous to the environment and human nature and human people and human population and everything than nuclear waste. I don't know about you, but I'll rather have some CO2, thank you, than nuclear waste. Now, then there's yellow hydrogen, which is electrolysis from solar energy. You have solar powers, make power, you put power down into the water, you split the water into oxygen and hydrogen, and Bob's your uncle. So that's good. And you have green hydrogen using renewable energies and making clean energy, releasing oxygen, yeah. So you can use, of course, any renewable source, which like wind turbines or hydropower. The problem is you use all the power to make this hydrogen, where are you going to get the power to power the rest of the society from? No, let not see all the hands at the same time. Anyone? Well, there's no answer to that, actually. They just say, well, it's going to work. We just have to build enough wind turbines and then everything's going to work fine. We are going to drive the whole society on wind turbines and solar power, and we're going to have such a surplus of power that we can actually make hydrogen when the night falls, and we can use as power when the night falls, and the wind doesn't blow like in winter when it's 15 below zero and there's no wind for 2 weeks. So that sounds not very smart. No. Well, and of course there's white hydrogen. White hydrogen, that is natural hydrogen, which is in the ground through fracking. You can find it if you do fracking deep down in fracking, and you release natural gas, you also release hydrogen, which is white, which is natural hydrogen, which is not very common here on Earth because hydrogen is so light. If you release it into a room, it just woof, it's just evaporates very fast and disperses very fast into space. So yeah, the important thing to remember about hydrogen, it is not an energy source. It's just energy management. It's not a solution to anything, actually. It doesn't give us more energy. On the contrary, it uses a lot of energy. It's just a form of a battery, to think of it like that. But hydrogen is fine because it's non-toxic. You can breathe it. It's okay. You won't die of it. And it's very light, so it disperses fast. So if you release hydrogen into a room, it will disperse fast. It is unfortunately flammable, which is a good thing, but it's very explosive. I mean, Hindenburg explosive. I mean, concentrated hydrogen is not something you want to have around or be around. But that's the plan. The whole society is going to be surrounded by concentrated hydrogen. So that sounds well thought through. Now, it's also very, very easy to ignite hydrogen. It's 20 times easier to ignite hydrogen than natural gas or gasoline. So just the tiniest spark in a room with hydrogen or enough hydrogen concentration and kaboom. Another problem with hydrogen is that it makes actually steel brittle. It's called hydrogen corrosion. And if steel is exposed to hydrogen over a long time, it actually turns brittle and it cracks. And this means that all the hydrogen infrastructure has to be made from very expensive materials, special materials that doesn't corrode. And that again means that building this enormous pipeline that's going to transport hydrogen under enormous pressure has to be built of very, very expensive materials. And not only that, it has to be a very, very high security system around it to make it safe. So yeah, that sounds also expensive. It's got also, hydrogen also got very low energy density. I mean, very low. I mean, that's why you have to compress it or cool it or liquefy it to make it usable. And of course, it's handling risks with it. If you compress it, of course, to 700 bars, it can explode just without igniting it, and then it will ignite and it will double explode. Or you can freeze it. You can actually, cool it down to so low temperature it turns into liquid, but that again demands an enormous amount of energy to do that. And it can leak. So there's a lot of costs. That's not only a lot of cost of making the hydrogen, transporting it, but also about maintenance and security. If you want to know more about maintenance and security of hydrogen, there's actually one, there is one company that is using hydrogen in enormous amounts, and that is NASA. And they have a booklet about how to handle enormous amount of hydrogen and how dangerous that is, because they use it in rockets. So that's maybe those who have most experience with handling enormous amounts of hydrogen. Another problem about hydrogen is this hydrogen transition, new economy, energy thingy, is that it has an enormous energy loss. Yeah, because you can't just put, electricity into it, split it and make oxygen, that's not just that. You lose about 20-30% of energy to make the hydrogen, okay, by electrolysis. 20-30% is lost in the production. And then another 10% or more is lost while compressing it, because that takes a lot of energy, of course, compressing it or cooling it to a liquid. Then you lose a lot of storing it, especially if it is a liquid, because you have to cool it all the time, and that demands a lot of energy. And then you have to transport it, which also demands a lot of energy. And then you have to use it. And if you convert it back to electricity, it takes about 30% of energy loss. So from you decide to take water and use your wind turbine to produce hydrogen and release oxygen into the air, you actually lose around 70% of the energy you put in from when you take out the hydrogen energy again. And that's a very bad battery, a very, very bad battery, because the energy loss in batteries are around 20%. You heard me, 20%. So a battery loses about 20% of the energy you put in, while hydrogen loses about 70% of the energy you put in, which actually means that if you're going to base the society on not electricity directly, but on hydrogen as a storage media, you have to build 4 or 5 more power stations than needed if you just put the electricity out on the grid directly. So, but of course you can't do that with wind turbines because they stop all the time, solar power, they produce power, but if a cloud comes, well, it falls and then it comes back and it falls, it comes back, it falls, and you can't really have an electricity grid. You must have something to stabilize this electricity grid to make the power flow all the time. And using the hydrogen is a fine plan. It's just that they don't really care about all the technical problems, and they don't tell you about them, and that's why I do. So I hope you share this with everyone else. Can actually it be safe? Will it be safe to handle hydrogen in these quantities in society? No, I don't think so. I've seen no government papers that is concerned about the safety of the public in this plan. None at all. Everyone says this is going to go fine, it's going to turn out fine, it's going to work, it's going to be a beautiful future that is green and sustainable. But is it really true? Are wind turbines and solar panels really renewables? Everyone says they are. Everyone says that's, well, of course they are. They're renewables. Well, it's true that the wind and the sun is renewable power source. But harvesting that power, that is not automatically renewable. On the contrary, wind turbines and solar panels, they use a lot of resources. There's mining and there's transport, and of course you have to maintain these things. These are industry products, okay? Heavy industry products that takes a lot of resources to make. And the worst is that there's not really any good way to recycle these machines. So why are they actually called renewables? Because they're not. This is consumption. making windmills and making solar panels, that's consumption. Enormous increase in consumption. So it's important that people actually sit down and listen and think about this big, great green plan that is going on, because it's got big, enormous flaws and big questions that is piling up. And no one is actually telling this. No one is really asking these questions publicly, not loud and clear. And the politicians, they don't need to answer these questions. So, of course, they've tried this system, haven't they? I mean, the natural thing to do if you're going to experiment with the whole energy system of a country, of course, you have a small-scale experiment, a test facility that has tried this, where you can actually see that it works. You can see what it will cost. You will see how much energy it delivers. You will see the flaws. You will make a small experiment to try it, like a small experiment like Denmark. That will be about the size, Cut off all the oil and all the hydrocarbons from Denmark and put up this green shift in Denmark, and let's try that and see what it costs, how it works, and how well it works, and how much it costs to maintain, and what the power will cost, and if the lights will be on. Surely they have done that. Nope. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. Not anywhere. I searched on the internet to find a small-scale project. I mean, not at least a laboratory, because in a laboratory anything can work. But a small-scale, like an island or a country that has tried the green shift and is actually living on this energy transition and the solution that everyone is talking about, and everyone takes for granted that it's going to work. But I can't find one. If you can find one, then please tell me in the comments below, because I can't find it. And if you can't really find a small-scale experiment over several years from an isolated island or a country or a city that is living the green shift and see if it works, if you haven't done that, what you're actually doing is turning whole of Europe into an energy experiment without any knowledge about if it's going to work or what it's going to cost. And if it doesn't work, what do you do then? What if it doesn't work? What if it's too expensive? What if it just doesn't technically function? What if it's not economically feasible? Well, it's time to start to ask this question, and that is why I made this film for you, and I hope you will share it with the others. But our surely politicians can't be that stupid. Yes, they can. Of course they can. Of course they can. Politicians, they can't actually fix a toaster. Like ask the whole EU Parliament to find one who can fix a toaster. No one. But nevertheless, every one of them thinks they can make the new energy system for the future. They can't, that they can do, but they don't understand how to fix a toaster. Now, if that doesn't make you a bit weary, then I don't know what it takes. So is hydrogen the future? I don't think so. But you never know. Will it work? Is it possible to make hydrogen? Yes. Does it work in cars? Yes. Can you drive industry on it? Can you make heat from it? Can you drive a society on it? Yes. It works. But it takes more than that to make it an everyday, normal system that is sustainable and is so cheap that the society actually can survive it as a modern society. Because modern societies isn't built on knowledge. It isn't built on people. It isn't built on agriculture. Modern societies is built on energy, and enormous amounts of energy, cheap energy flow, more than you ever need, because then the prices go down. That's what built the normal. That is what made Europe. That is what made modern societies. Energy. And what EU is doing now is an energy experiment, and they have no small scale, long time results to show, to guarantee that this actually will work. So I hope you don't lose your night's sleep by this, because the green shift is happening. They are doing it, they are trying it, and they really, really mean it, and they use billions of your money to make this happen. But will it work? We'll see. I hope you all enjoyed this small podcast and found it interesting, and I hope you all will subscribe. I've been podcasting for 2 or 3 years here in Norway in Norwegian, but now I'm trying to expand into English so more people can get a counterpoint, because what you really need is not consensus, but a counterpoint. Thank you. I'm Kent Anderson, the author.